Rules don't improve behavior. Awareness helps improve behavior, but it doesn't dictate that that's going to be the outcome. The reason we have so many rules for behavior is because people want to be ignorant in a subconscious kind of way. Ignorant in ways that people have no ground to appreciate one another. And it's not entirely their fault. People abusing power like ignorant people. It's part of the culture that we're born into in this world. Awareness brings appreciation and pulls down walls. Remember Berlin? So it's not the politicians who are the biggest enemy. It is ignorance to what's happening. Politicians are like farmers who are using factors that are already in place, like soil and sunlight. They're just helping the existing ignorance produce a crop by which the aware can benefit if they so choose, or simply avoid the madness and the mess that is in the ignorant atmosphere. The only problem is that what appears as awareness on the side of control is also clouded by ignorance to the need to teach people to fish for themselves instead of waiting around for someone to reward their ignorance by giving them a fish. They don't want to give up their power, so nobody wins. The only thing people need to do is wake up. When everybody sees clearly, the right things will happen spontaneously to make this world more harmonious. It isn't about fences and policies. That is a dark age approach which keeps people ignoring their emotions. Awareness of emotions fosters emotional intelligence, which in turn fosters empathy for one's own neighbors, and so on with the neighbor's neighbors. Awareness starts inside, not outside. The answer that the ignorant are striving for is outside. If you're awake enough to look around at the present conditions, you can see the results of seeking answers externally. One of the reasons people don't know where to look for God's kingdom is because it's a threat to the agency and power, meaning the culture of ignorance, which is the blind leading the blind in agreement with one another. So anything that looks like it's out of agreement, there's a red flag that gets raised by the blind to the other blind. So let's think about that very, very carefully. Ask yourself, how have you sought the kingdom of God today? What about yesterday? Now take a look at what's available to do right this moment to seek the kingdom of God. Right this moment, this very moment. For the majority of those who think they have the answer to this problem, or they're above this problem or inquiry, they might come up with the answer that prayer is how one seeks the kingdom of God. This is like a blind man asking for directions. There is merit in the activity, but it is not as direct as simply already knowing which direction to turn. The agency in power, meaning ignorance and the culture of ignorance, doesn't tell you that the scriptures point out clearly that the kingdom of God is within you. This is the statement Jesus made in the book of Luke in the Bible, and in reality, when he was walking on the earth. But if you ask the average Christian where the kingdom of God is, they will say either heaven or point upward toward the sky or perhaps something like that. Why is that? Because the truth is a threat to the agency and power. If there must be division for the purpose of power, then there has to be some kind of a controlling element or desire to control those who are not in the know, those who are not in the ignorant know. But love is higher than that. Love is higher than that. And that's where Jesus' teachings were leading us to explore. Not anarchy or picking sides or anything that has to do with battling against another group, but really more about seeking love in a transcendental kind of way, a transcendent, something beyond that whole dynamic of fighting and battling and trying to win and compete. That's all still within the confines of ignorance in the game of who's in power. But it isn't in respect to love. If God is love, which He is, how does that kind of competition respect the boundlessness of His presence? You see, there has to be a mode of consciousness and heart awareness, and there is, which isn't caught up in that whole game. So power isn't needed if the truth isn't hidden. And it only can appear hidden if it's believed that there's a separation between one's experience on the human level in spirit, but that's something that's only appearing to be a reality if it's believed that that's the case. And the ignorance in culture that's perpetuated is established as such that, yes, it does appear that way. So it's okay if you prefer the homogeneous herd, because you would feel lost without it. That's normal. At some point, you'll feel the disease that this activity perpetuates, or perhaps the hunger that still remains in this activity for something more nurturing to the soul, something for perhaps a more mature spiritual digestive tract, if you will, metaphorically speaking here. Because what the church offers is a beautiful interface for the babes, the infants, and also for revisiting the fundamentals of the foundation of faith. But what it doesn't include so much is a regular providence of spiritual meat instead of milk. Instead of mother's milk, The baby at some point has to digest something a little more complex in order to begin growing and maturing. There is, after all, a balance to everything. So again, if we want to look at what's balancing our path out of the culture that we're born into, which is ignorance, then we really have to see that our awareness is not only a counterbalance to the ignorance, but it's also balancing us with the ignorance so that the battle isn't perpetuated on that higher level of awareness and consciousness in God's presence. Blessings.